Okay, so it is 10. I think we can get started. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to Edify's Learning Spaces webinar, Self-Compassion in Parenting. This is the second of 10 webinars that Edify is offering as part of a certification process in socio-emotional learning. My name is Leah Alfred Olmedo, and I'll be moderating today. I'm currently a full-time student at UBC, and I'm experiencing this shift to online learning from the student's perspective. Today's webinar will be recorded and is being streamed live on Facebook, but your information will not be visible. We can't see your name, we can't see the question and answers, and we can't see the chat on the recording. We value your privacy, so feel free to be as involved as you want. You won't be recorded. I do encourage you to ask questions as we go along, as the presentation is happening. We'll get to questions at the end, and any questions that we don't have time for with Anam, we can answer in email and in sort of the wrap up afterwards. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. I'm going to hand you over to Priya now, and she'll introduce Anam and then our speaker.
Thank you so much, Leah. I'm really excited to have you all here. My name is Priya Transgard, and my pronouns are she and hers. And we are having this webinar in Vancouver in the unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. And we are so blessed to have a very sunny day today to join us as well. I am the owner of Edify Learning Spaces. And one of the things that we do at Edify is to match up tutors for your K-12 students. And what makes Edify different is that we match you up, you match your learner up with math, English, language arts, all of those wonderful subjects, but we add a component of socio-emotional learning. And socio-emotional learning is so important, especially now. I'm trying to get this slide to move. But what I wanted to say is that one of the things that got me interested in socio-emotional learning was that it increases motivation, it decreases anxiety, and it has the ability to change challenging behaviors, and it can increase your confidence as well as your learner's confidence as well. If we unlock our emotions, we will be able to achieve so much more and find meaning. And I think that's one of the reasons why social emotional learning is so important. As a parent of two neurodivergent kids who needed more help with social emotional learning, I personally saw the value. During the pandemic, I had an opportunity to see my child thrive on with online learning. And I heard from so many of my parent friends that online learning was not going well for them. And I think part of the reason for that was the one-on-one attention that they were getting, and also help with socio-emotional learning. So I started to look for socio-emotional learning experts, and I found Anam. Anam Zaidi is a powerhouse. It's hard to continuously explain how amazing she is, but when I saw that she was featured in Huffington Post and at UC Berkeley, the Greater Good Foundation, her work with nonprofits, her literacy programs, University of Washington, I taught at the largest school online with 65,000 students, the Finnish Board of Education. I thought, wow, where is she? And it happened to be that she was in Vancouver right when the pandemic hit. So I thought that was a great opportunity to share her knowledge with all of you. So I'm really happy to introduce Anam today, and she is going to take it from here.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you for those kind words and wonderful introduction. And a big hello and welcome to everyone who's taken their precious time to listen to us, to what we have to say. I'll try to make the most of the time and get right to it. Today, we're going to talk about self-compassion, because both Priya and I had discussions and we realized that during the pandemic, this is one essential component that's not spoken about when it comes to parents. So what is self-compassion? The quick version is that it's treating yourself with the same kind of caring and support and understanding that you would show to anyone you care about. In fact, most of us make incredibly harsh, cruel self-judgments that we would never make about a total stranger, let alone someone we cared about. Self-compassion was actually coined by this amazing lady called Kristen Neff. I'm a big follower of her. And she says that the best way to imagine self-compassion is to imagine an island, which is an island of calm, of refuge from the stormy seas and the storms of endless positive and negative self-judgment. So I think that's really nice because every single day that we get up, we're hoarded with self-judgment. And imagining a particular island that you're on, which doesn't have that, it's itself very welcoming as a concept. To take deeper, what does self-compassion include? Let's look into the different components. It's self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. First, it requires self-kindness, that is, that we be gentle and understanding with ourselves rather than harshly critical and judgmental. It sounds easy, but you know that it's one of the toughest things to do. Second, it requires recognition of our common humanity, feeling connected with others in the experience of life rather than feeling isolated and alienated by our suffering. This is just happening to me. No one understands this. I'm the only one that's going through this particular pain. And thirdly, it includes an essential component of mindfulness, that we hold our experience in balanced awareness rather than ignoring our pain or exaggerating it. I think this example would work here is that when I used to counsel students and I used to say, okay, tell me one good thing about yourself. And there was this 10-minute of pause and they used to wonder and I could see them struggling. And they were like, there's nothing good about me. And just the fact that they have been surrounded in an environment which exaggerates where they lack, their faults, that it becomes very tough for a preteen to sit and think about one good thing that they're good, one thing that they're good at. So these are the most essential components, that we should have kindness, we should have common humanity, and we should have a component of mindfulness when we adopt this in our lives. So how does this come into the picture when we talk about parents? And I feel after my years of experience of working with parents that parenting pivots, it's around the fulcrum of guilt and not being good enough. That's the foundation with which parenting right now is functioning around. And that's exactly what we need to cater to, and self-compassion could be one step that could help you combat these feelings. So a recent study found that self-compassionate parents of adult children with developmental disabilities tend to have lower levels of stress and depression. Another study found that self-compassion may act as a shield against internalizing stigma, the negative evaluation and feelings others have about parenting children with autism. Stigma comes from their ability for us to internalize what the environment is saying and take it in and say, maybe the environment is right. But when you have self-compassion and you are your best support, you're able to combat that stigma. Taken together, these studies suggest that self-compassion may be a resource for resiliency and a protective buffer against both internal and external criticism that we go through on a daily basis. Moving on, this is one of my favorite parts, especially when we're in a culture and when I look at my LinkedIn and I see so many articles about self-esteem and boosting self-esteem. On a high level, what is self-esteem and how is it different from self-compassion? Well, when you take your self-worth and compare it to others, that is self-esteem. Where do I stand in comparison to others? Whereas self-compassion is taking your self-worth and comparing it to your past self and the future self. So both self-compassion and self-esteem involve positive emotions. But self-esteem is all about being special and above average. You subtly try to position yourself above other people so you can maintain your self-esteem. I'm good, I'm bigger, I'm better, I'm faster. That's what all the ad campaigns tell us to believe, right? But self-compassion is about shared humanity. It's about being human. We have strengths and beautiful qualities, and we have weaknesses. We succeed and we fail, and it's all part of the human experience. That's the biggest differentiator between self-compassion and self-esteem. So the more we move towards self-compassion and let go of our ability of where do I stand in this group? Am I better than them? Am I special? Am I like above average constantly? We would be much less harsher to ourselves. So next slide. How do we cultivate self-compassion? There are so many ways, and I think it's been around 10 years since Kristen Neff coined this term. At that time, it was very new, but now there's so many activities and exercises and research is done. Today, I'll just focus on three to four main easy tools that we can use. Next slide. Loving kindness meditation. I'll just give you a little walkthrough. We'll talk about self-compassion letters and how you can use this as adults and also with your children. And self-compassion hugs, they really work well with everybody, I think. And I think our political leaders need self-compassion hugs right now. And I'll talk about something that we created in schools called the self-forgiveness tree. So the first one, practice loving kindness meditation. The meditation aspect here, I'm just going to give you what the three components are. It does take a lot of practice, like any aspect of mindfulness. It basically works on the tenets that A, you start your mindfulness practice about with thinking of a person close to you who loves you very much. Bring into mind that person. And imagine that person sending you wishes for your safety, for your well-being and happiness. Feel the warm wishes and love coming from this person towards you. Imagine this great person that you have in your life. Could be a parent, significant other, it could be a friend. And then just imagine all the love that they have showered on you throughout your life and experience that in the moment. The next step of loving kindness meditation is you send your love back to that person. You and this person are similar. Just like you have so many similarities with this person. And there's one big similarity that this person also wishes to be happy, just like you. So, and the next step would then be extending this awareness and saying, I'm going to think of an acquaintance that I don't know that well. But what is so similar with me and that particular acquaintance? I can't find any similarity. Wait, there's one similarity. There's this person would also want to be happy in their life. They would also want to flourish in their well-being journey and have a good life. Then we move on from acquaintance to imagine the entire globe, like a tiny little ball, and saying, I do not know all the people in this globe. I do not have names of them. I do not have faces to them. But one thing that links all of us together is that we want to be happy. And I want to send that love to every being on the planet. So what this meditation does is unlock your ability to give love to others even when you don't identify with them. And that once you do that, it opens the gate to receive that kind of compassion from others that you don't identify with. So this is a good practice, and if you build on it, it really helps your brain to understand what self-compassion really is. Moving on. This is one of the activities that I've done. In school, I realized that there was so much harsh judgment that came with my experience with counseling students. And so what we did with fifth graders is actually an experiment. I asked them, I want you to write one thing that you hate about yourself. absolutely hate. Teachers didn't like me using the word hate, but I had to go to the extreme to unlock this. And I said, okay, write it down. It was amazing to see how it took them 1 second and they were all scribbling pages and pages of all they hated about themselves. I said, okay, everyone's done. Now let's take a pause. And now just imagine that the thing that you've just written on this notepad, imagine that it was a letter written by your friend. And this problem, this characteristic that you've mentioned was something that your friend was going through. What would you tell your friend to make him, her feel better? Imagine this problem's not yours, it's your friend. And I was just surprised, and I've tried to share a few notes. There were letters where children said, I'm ashamed of my height. Everybody makes fun of my height. And as soon as I told him that, what if your friend had this issue? Like, oh, my favorite cricketer, Sachin Tendulkar, is short, just like me. So just like you, it's not a big deal. It doesn't stop you from being a celebrity and having a fan following. I was unlocking the ability to tell children that the power to solve most of your issues lies within if you just tap on the self-compassion aspect of you. The other letter that we've shared here is that, especially in Indian culture, where they were ashamed to be dark-skinned. And I love how this child has written that every once in a while, everyone's a winner and everyone's a loser, and all losers have a winning end. It was beautiful how this child wrote this, and it just immediately showed them the ability that when I transfer my problems to someone else, I'm kinder to them, I have more solutions. Whereas when it's my problem, I'm really harsh and critical, and I feel it's the dead end. Next slide. SelfCompassion Hugs. So we used to do this across the schools, school leaders, teachers, support staff, everyone had to do self-compassion that month. It's like, okay, how do I teach this complex term which adults and my school leaders are having a hard time to grasp to my elementary, pre-K, and kindergarten kids? I said, okay, let's end the school with a good note. So this, as you can see, this is grade 2, I believe. I quietly went in the classroom and clicked a picture. They ended the class every day after they had to go home. They hugged themselves, and actually, you can see the kids doing that and say, no matter what mistakes I made, no matter how much I hated myself today, I still want to end the day saying I love myself and I'm truly blessed. Just doing that helped kids have this broad smile and end the school on a good note. And it actually helped a lot with children being more optimistic on the long run. So this is something that you could do with your kids as a family. I think it works really well with caregivers and the children. It's a good bonding time. Moving on. Self-forgiveness tree. So when I was working with a couple of schools, and I realized, especially schools that represented collectivistic culture, I realized that how am I supposed to teach them the aspect of forgiveness when they've not learned how to forgive themselves? And some cultures, collectivistic cultures specifically, subtly give the impression that when you forgive someone, it is something, you're doing a big deed. You're supposed to feel like the hero in the room because you've done something special for someone. And I wanted to combat that understanding that my students had at that point of time. And I said, you need to learn and understand how tough it is to forgive yourself so that you appreciate when other people forgive you. So we took, as you can see, 2-3 branches of a tree and put it right in the soil and cut paper leaves and wrote, I forgive myself for, and I put it in a box next to the tree. And every single day for 1 year, the entire box used to get emptied because children quietly when no one was around, used to write, I forgive myself for lying to my mother. I forgive myself for looking in the mirror and hating myself. I forgive myself for cheating. And it was amazing to see that at the end of the day, the same tree where in a school which was constantly trying to propagate that you should be perfect, good, and great, had these leaves all over with no names, but adults, youngsters saying that everyone is a fallible human being trying to forgive themselves for something. And the tree used to just get filled up unless there were no branches left. So I think it's a good thing, especially now with the festive season coming in, to use these little traditions, maybe put some self-forgiveness ornaments around your Christmas tree, and just embody the symbol that everyone, the adults in this family, the youngsters, everyone has something that they don't like the most, and they're working on it, and it's okay to feel like that. So I think this was a good reminder, especially for schools, and it worked well for parents and students. Moving on. Yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic, thank you.
Good.
Does anyone have any questions before I ask Anam? Or while I'm asking Anam, please use the Q&A function or the chat function, whichever. So our question for you, does self-compassion lead to complacency, do you think?
Yeah, that's a very common concern. It's actually, I think, #1 block to self-compassion. The fear that if I'm too kind to myself, I'll be complacent. The research doesn't show that. The research really supports that people who are self-compassionate, their standards are just as high for themselves, but they don't get as upset when they fail to meet their goals. They cope with it more productively. And as a result, when self-compassionate people don't reach a goal, they're much likely to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and re-engage in a new goal. So I feel that self-compassion is associated with what's called learning goals rather than performance goals. So people who are self-compassionate, they want to learn and grow for its own sake, not because they want to impress other people. And there's a huge body of research showing that if your goal is to learn as opposed to just impress others, it's a more sustainable way of learning and growing.
That makes sense. That ties into the self-esteem versus self-compassion too.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? Anybody?
I do want to ask if anybody has ideas for upcoming webinars to let us know. And we talk about monthly, Anam and I, we come up with different ideas, and we would love to have your ideas as well. And Anam, I just want to add that that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing the research that you took part in firsthand, that primary research, which sounded lovely. And it was so great to see it visually, to see the tree and to see that the kids were hugging themselves, and that you got the parents and the caregivers to do that as well.
Thank you.
Bia, do you see?
I think there is a question. Yes, from Carrie. So Anam, if students are anxious about their school results, what are some tips to help lead them away from that?
Yes,
Thank you, Carrie.
A great question. Thank you for asking, especially this time. I think it starts with having a conversation saying, what do you think your grades represent for you? What do they mean for you? And just starting the conversation about, okay, does this tell me exactly the person you are? Or does it tell me the person you're going to be or the profession you will be in? What does it tell you? Does it tell me about the kind of person you were or the kind of ability you have? And just driving the conversation about how this grade that you're going to see was trying to test you on a particular skill at that particular time. And you're no more that kind of person. And it's just an evaluation of something in that particular moment, and the moment has passed. So just showing them that their self-worth is not derived from grades, consequences are not derived from grades, but it's just a metric, and it depends on how much importance you give yourself to it. So I think that opens the ball of anxiety and saying, what am I anxious about? What's the worst that can happen with this particular grade, right? And what's the best that can happen? So students focus so much on what about if I get a really bad grade? And parents delve into that conversation a lot, but they never foresee of what if you get a really good grade? What are the consequences? How's your life going to change from then on, right? So having that positive aspect in those conversations may help taper down the anxiety.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other questions before we wrap up? I mean, if anybody thinks of anything afterwards, you can always get in touch.
Okay, should we unmute? Hold on. If anybody wants to ask any questions, we can unmute you.
We have a hand up.
Okay.
Oh, where did the hand go? Maybe not. I know being in online classes right now, it can be a little intimidating to speak in the class, but please feel free to join in if you feel like it.
Yeah, this part is open, so if you would like to ask any questions. But yeah, Adam, you've done some work with nonprofits as well, and I just find it so amazing that you're, can you tell us a little bit about the literacy program that you started?
Yeah. So what we did was, while I was working with Global Classroom, which runs the world's largest school, they have a Guinness World Record of 65,000 children. And I was working with 40 school leaders trying to teach them social emotional skills. A part of me was not feeling too good about it because I was not catering to the slums in my community. And therefore, I realized that we need to create a literacy lab around the tenets of positive psychology at the heart of a slum. So that got me to get into one of the slums with no construction experience from before. And we built out a bamboo structure, and that became a literacy lab for anyone from the age of 6 to 60, where we taught basic literacy skills in English, math, and Hindi on the tenets of positive psychology. So everything that I did in schools, all these things that you see in SelfCompassion Letters, was also done for the underserved community. And what's brilliant to note is that I wanted it to be a sustainable model where we take a back end and let the community make it go ahead. So all the girls that used to come and become students, they eventually became teachers in that literacy lab, sending a message across to the slum that education can also get you short-term goals of having an earning, having a livelihood. And in the evening, the same volunteers that used to teach students sat on the other end, and the students and the women of the community used to teach us with the impression that we are not perfect, we're not here to impart knowledge, instead it's coexistence where we learn both ways. And this was rippled effect across many communities where we created global dream labs, which became a knowledge center hub. So
that's fantastic.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So I think we can finish with a few questions if you have time. There's a poll. And after that, yeah, give you some time if you are available to complete that, and then we will have completed our second webinar.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to those of you that have signed up, and for those of you that didn't make it, I will be, of course, sending this to you by newsletter, and there's still room to sign up for our SEL certification. So if you would like to sign up for the SEL certification, just email me. I see some notes there. yeah, you can email me and let me know that you're interested in the SEL certification, and then I will send you the recordings of these sessions. Okay, great. I see that many people are voting, so that's wonderful. I will send the results in the newsletter. And I will just give you another 20 seconds to wrap up. Okay. I'm getting great feedback also. Michelle, she says that she's cleaning the house and listening with her 5-year-old, and that she will send some more questions, and she's so impressed. And also we have some people who are now signing up for the SEL certification course. So thank you so much for signing up for our course with Anam and your webinar program. And I'm so happy that people are saying that they are going to give themselves a hug today. So
Yay.
with that, I'd like to come to a close for the webinar. And thank you so much to our moderator, Leah. And thank you so much to Anam Zaidi. I think that was more than we could have asked for in terms of practical information. Thank you so much for talking about self-compassion. It is exactly what we need right now.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you so much for this.
Okay. All right. So see you guys at webinar 3 and on your newsletters. Have a great day.